So I'm just going to go over some chapters here, the first three chapters, where there's a lot of information that's very important, and I hope I have them condensed into the key points. So let's look at chapter 1. So the principal role of the National Transport Authority is the development, operation and maintenance of a regulatory framework or a set of rules for the operation of small public service vehicles and their drivers as per the Taxi Regulation Act of 2013 and 2016. Now, the objectives of the National Transport Authority, they're a state body established in 2009. So to promote provision and upkeep of quality services by SPSVs and their drivers, to pursue a customer-oriented quality licensing system for driver and vehicle license holders, to oversee a professional and safe SPSV service, to encourage competition, to consider measures to integrate taxi services with the wider public transport system, to promote an emphasis in the business on a service for people with disabilities or other impairments, to encourage investment with a view to enhance the SPSV services. Now, the objectives on pages 2 and 3 are summarised as per the Taxi Regulation Act on 2013 and 2016. So that's what we've just spoken about. Now, the responsibilities and legal powers of the National Transport Authority in relation to SPSVs. So they regulation, so they make the rules, they set the standards. With regard to licensing, they license drivers, operators, dispatch operators and booking services. They oversee compliance, so they monitor and they have powers to prosecute. And then as regards consumer and industry information, they provide an information service, they deal with complaints and indeed commendations. They also oversee the skills development, which of course is the course we are presently undertaking. Now, there is an advisory committee on SPSVs, also known as the Taxi Advisory Committee. It's on page 4 of your manual. It's a committee of interested stakeholders appointed by the Minister of the day and can advise the NTA on matters relating to SPSVs. The advice is not binding. The stakeholders include SPSV operators and drivers, the local authorities, An Garda Síochána, consumers, disability groups, business lobby, older persons lobbies, tourism, competition, specialists. The three core areas of licensing: driver licensing, vehicle licenses, dispatch operator licenses. There are 6 categories of vehicle license: taxi, wheelchair accessible taxi, hackney, wheelchair accessible hackney, local area hackney, and limousine. Now, what is a dispatch operator? It's an individual or an organisation that provides a service for taking a booking for SPSV services delivered by someone else, or who provides a service that enables prospective passengers to arrange the hire of an SPSV themselves. So it could be some sophisticated online operation or an app. The Taxi Regulation Act empowers the National Transport Authority to regulate and license dispatch operators, and persons wishing to provide such a service must obtain a licence from a National Transport Authority. Now, there is an exception: anybody providing a limousine service. Now, the requirements and standards for the dispatch operator include that their tax affairs must be up to date. That would be verified online with the revenue. That they maintain records of all drivers affiliated or attached to the dispatch operator, including the driver and vehicle licence and insurance records. They keep a record of all the bookings. They provide the National Transport Authority with their trading name and contact information customers use for booking fares from the dispatch operator. They have clear procedures for complaints, whereby records can be accessed by NTA on request. They pay the relevant licence fee to the NTA, and they ensure an emphasis is placed on services for people with disabilities. They give them priority. And the NTA recommend that holders of wheelchair accessible vehicle licenses are strongly encouraged to affiliate to dispatch operators. You apply, a prospective dispatch operator applies using the form D01 to the NTA administrative offices in Galway. Now, page 6 of the manual, along with specific SPSV regs that must be complied with, the SPSV driver operators, like any citizen, bound by the law of the land as set out by, for example, the Road Safety Authority, the Health and Safety Authority, Revenue, Data Protection, the HSE, the Legal Metrology Service, that's part of the National Standards Authority of Ireland, so when you're running a meter in your taxi. The Ombudsman is kind of the last port of call when it comes to complaints. Local authorities, the Department of Transport, I've repeated Revenue, sorry about that. Now the benefits of regulation, so all this arguably dense red tape, there in theory are benefits. A level playing field whereby illegitimate operators are crowded out. So you can be assured that, like any license that's received, anyone that's operating illegitimately is kept away. Customers therefore can expect high standards, thereby enhancing the reputation of the SPSV industry. Therefore, instilling consumer confidence that the industry operates to high standards overseen by clear and enforceable rules. This compliance is monitored and enforced by the NTA in conjunction with An Gardaí. Now, getting an SPSV on the road. An SPSV driver licence, a licensed SPSV, a valid cert of insurance, a valid NCT cert, tax clearance, driver to vehicle link. So there's a database of details of the driver and the vehicle they work with. The skills development programme, that's the driver entry test, the industry knowledge and the local area knowledge. Page 8 talks about the National SPSV Registers, the licence database that's underwritten by Section 18 of the Taxi Regulation Act 2013 and 16. Now, driver, name and address, licence number, county or counties they're licensed to drive, the date of licensing issuing, and details, if there's any, of suspension or revocation with respect to the licence. With regards to the vehicle, the database includes the licence number, the registered number of the licensed vehicle, the registration number I should say, the category of SPSV licence applies to, and the details of any changes of the vehicle associated with the licence. Now, there's a limited subset of the licence record available to the public on the NTA website, transportforireland.ie, but personal details are omitted. Now, however, a formal application may be made to access such information, and that would require a fee. So, you know, the database does contain a lot of information, but there's only a limited subset of that information readily available to the public. Any more information would need to go through a stringent process before it could be accessed. Now, let's look at SPSV driver licensing. That's all detailed in Chapter 2. So again, we go through An Garda. The application form is known as PSV 15/18. They vet applicants. They grant and renew licenses. And the National Transport Authority, as part of their role, they administer the driver entry test. They process the driver licence fees. They issue the driver ID cards. They maintain the driver licence register. Now, applying for the SPSV licence, you must be a suitable person. You must have your Class B licence, your driving licence, free from endorsement for at least 12 months. Be tax compliant. Have passed this SPSV skills development test. They use the PSV 1518 form, the SPSV test, pay the NTA fee, and make sure the receipt is available. 3 photos, 10 centimetres by 7 centimetres. They submit above to the guards with the undertaking not to drive 11 hours for more than 3 days, and any other application details, including evidence that you have informed your employer of your intention to apply for an SPSV licence. You must have a health declaration, and you must have no convictions under Section 30, Part 3, scheduled to the Taxi Regulation Act 2013 and 2016. Any other documents that may be requested. Now, this can take up to 12 weeks, this whole process. Okay. And local area Hackney, they must provide the documentary evidence of a service need. No requirement for SPSV entry test, and it's renewable after 3 years. Okay, so the local area Hackney is an exception to the normal rules. Mandatory disqualifications are on page 12. So things that would limit or even exclude you achieving a licence. So any road traffic offences which incur an extra 3 to 5 years. Careless and dangerous driving, driving under the influence, being in charge of a vehicle under the influence, failing to provide a specimen. The Garda then issue licence and inform the NTA, who send you 2 cards, a large driver ID for dashboard and a smart card. Both forms of ID show your photo, name, driver licence number, expiry date, area you're licensed to stand, apply for hire. The ID cards, let's have a look. Purple means you've passed the driver entry test. That was previously the industry knowledge test. So they're kind of the gold standard card. The yellow is the ID card that was issued to the driver before this test regime came into place. And green is for the local area Hackney. Now the SPSV licence, so any category of SPSV by 6, and the local area Hackney accept passengers in the allocated area. It's valid for 5 years, the SPSV licence. The local area Hackney is valid for 3 years, and it cannot be renewed. It cannot be renewed in the sense that when the 3 years are up, you must renew an application and make the case again for the continuation of the local Hackney. They're non-transferable. Now the SPSV driver licence, you can drive any of 6 categories, display the driver card at all times, carry the smart card at all times, you can stand or ply in the areas you're permitted, you can drive a passenger to a destination outside the area, you can accept pre-booked journeys from other counties. To stand or apply for hire in other counties, you must pass the area knowledge for each one. So, for example, I noticed in Waterford City that a lot of taxi drivers down there have permission. They're licensed to work in Kilkenny because they're bordering counties. Indeed, Waterford City, part of it is in Kilkenny as well. Ferrybank and that. You must display the appropriate card when plying in the county. Now, the local area Hackney licence is limited to the local area only. You pick up a passenger within a radius of 5 to 7 kilometres from the holder's residence. However, you may drive a passenger to a destination outside this area. You have the correct vehicle licence. It's valid for 3 years and non-renewable, like I said, but an application for a new licence can be made. Now, renewing the licence is the same as the initial application, and one can apply up to 3 months earlier. That goes for all categories. So that's the driver display card. Okay. And it should be clearly displayed on the dashboard of the vehicle. The green card for local area Hackney. The smart card, again, it's just a small version in your wallet of the driver ID card and should be on your person when operating an Spsv vehicle. Now let's look at the rights of a driver. To be paid in full as per agreed or as the taximeter reading indicates. You may terminate the hire if the passenger fails to pay. You may reasonably refuse service if somebody or passenger wants to consume tobacco, alcohol or food, if they're aggressive, intoxicated, drunk, disorderly passengers, if they damage or soil the vehicle. You may reasonably refuse a journey of more than 30 kilometers in a taxi or wheelchair taxi. If there's adverse weather conditions, excess passengers, excess luggage. Responsibilities. With regard to fares, there must be a working taximeter linked to the national maximum taxi fare. With respect to customer service, you must have a good knowledge of the routes, clean roadworthy vehicle, offer reasonable assistance with luggage. Guide or assistance dogs must be taken at no extra charge. A taxi must print a receipt. A local area hackney would provide a written receipt. And know and understand Spsv regulations. Display or tamper-proof discs and driver cards. The tamper-proof discs are to do with the vehicle. Seatbelts, Road Traffic Act, stand or ply in allocated county or counties only as per your licence. So, a lot of these are common sense really, but they have to be stressed. If you change your address and any other contact details, you must notify the National Transport Authority within 21 days. Failure to do so is an offence. Likewise, inform An Garda. Now, driving without a valid Spsv licence attracts a penalty of up to €5,000. Chapter 3 is to do with choosing a vehicle to use as an Spsv. So, size, comfort, age and accessibility. With respect to roadworthiness, it must have an NCT. There is an exception, a vehicle that is 3 months old and that has travelled less than 3,000 kilometres. So, that's a brand new vehicle, The NCT cert shouldn't be older than 90 days before there's the initial suitability test. The Spsv suitability, so the vehicle specification, age, condition and comfort, the wheelchair, plus the specific equipment required for the wheelchair is all detailed in the initial suitability manual. The general requirements are that vehicles they meet required standards, and they can carry up to 8 persons excluding the driver, and they weigh no more than 3,500 kilos. Maximum age, so the local area hackney 10 years, wheelchair taxi hackney 6 years, limousine there's no limit. Just the age there again now, just to help us go through this. So age, category of license, so the transaction, new license renewal, change of vehicle, change of license category, and license history, when it was first issued, when the vehicle was first associated with the license, and whether the license category has been changed. So these are all the factors that come into play when assessing the age. The size of the vehicle, so the luggage area of at least 420 litres, suitable for a folded wheelchair. Now that luggage requirement may be reduced for electric and hybrid vehicles, and the luggage capacity doesn't apply to local area hackney licenses. The windows, they must be at least 70% light transmission, and a dark band at the top may not exceed 125 millimeters. There's an approval number, Roman number V or 5, which indicates unsuitability. The roof must be permanent and rigid. There's a sunroof permitted. Side-facing seats are not permitted except in limousines. Temperature control, inside 20 degrees Celsius while outside minus 5 degrees Celsius. So that's just a band of temperature within which the vehicle must be suitable to withstand. So these are European Union regulations that are there for most cars, really. You know, they're just being stressed here, and these are the main requirements that are probably easier to remember when it comes to an exam. Now, a bull bar is a supplementary bumper at the front, and again that must comply with an EC regulation 78/2009 2009 EC. Again, this is to do with regulations set down by the European Union with regard to these bumpers and the size of vehicles and the effect they may have in collisions. Wheelchair vehicles. A minimum capacity of one person sitting in a wheelchair and one other adult passenger. If there's no wheelchair, you can carry 3 passengers. You must carry 3 passengers. The specialist equipment then, ramps or lifts, approved restraints, a symbol sign for the roof when it comes to a taxi, or when it comes to a hackney, the sign must be on the door. Because wheelchair accessible vehicles are modified, the changes need certification as per the initial suitability. And that would have to be certified by a technical assessor. So wheelchair vehicles have been modified, so they need to be given the stamp of approval. The technical assessor's report must be no older than 60 days before you go on to the initial suitability. Now, the wheelchair vehicle requirements, the main ones here. The headroom is a minimum of 1,350 millimeters. The door, 745 millimeters by 1250 millimeters. The handholds, 35 millimeter diameter. If there's a step needed, if the passenger compartment is more than 230 millimeters off the ground. And the ramp then, the maximum slope is 16 degrees and must support 300 kilos, and that would be marked then with the vehicle registration number. Okay. The technical assessor that will assess the modifications for the wheelchair vehicle must have a level 7 qualification in their engineering field, 5 years experience. They have adequate facilities and professional indemnity insurance. You know, and there are companies in the cities that are properly regulated, and those kind of expectations are a given. So that's the first 3 chapters of the Spsv to keep you going while we are on lockdown. I hope it's a help.